"It was just a mistake," she said, her voice cracking as if the weight of her betrayal could be softened by simplicity. Samantha stood in our apartment's kitchen, framed by the glow of morning light, the same light that once made her smile look like home. But not today. I didn't yell, I didn't ask her why, I didn't even flinch. Instead, I stared at her, really stared, until the silence pressed down like a lead blanket. I saw everything I needed in her eyes. Not regret, not love, just fear that I might not forgive her. Fear that her life might actually change now. She'd expected chaos, maybe even begging, but I gave her nothing, not even the satisfaction of a reaction. After a long pause, I simply said, "Okay." I turned, walked to our bedroom, and sat down on the edge of the bed. She followed, watching me with a confused mixture of guilt and hope. That's what she wanted. Hope. That I'd say it's fine, that I'd hold her and make the consequences disappear. But some things don't go away with an apology. By the end of the day, I had begun gathering the evidence, not out of rage, but out of something colder: resolve. Her messages, photos, hotel receipts. I made copies. I backed up everything. Methodical, calm. She called it a one-time thing. But the time-stamped texts stretched back 3 months. And the smirks in the selfies? Those weren't accidents. She thought calling it a mistake would undo it, like the word itself had magic in it, like she hadn't shattered something sacred between us. I sent the first email to her parents that night. No subject line, no words, just attachments. Then came the message to her best friend. A woman who'd trusted her with every secret, every heartbreak, and finally to her boss. Samantha worked hard to keep her professional life spotless. I simply lifted the curtain. No captions, no explanation, just the truth, unfiltered and undeniable. She thought I'd forgive her. The real mistake was believing I would. After Samantha's confession, I didn't let her see me break. There were no slammed doors, no raised voices, no accusations hurled across the room, just silence. A calm so complete it unnerved her more than any outburst could. She kept glancing at me the next few days, waiting for the explosion. But I was done wasting words. If she had decided our love was worth risking for a few stolen moments, then I owed her nothing, not even my anger. I moved with purpose, slow and steady, like a man assembling a puzzle. I wasn't looking for closure, I was building a case. Samantha had underestimated the one thing that would never lie: evidence. She was careless, too used to hiding things in plain sight. Her phone was a goldmine. She had changed the contact name of the guy, Daniel from work. She had called him once when a message popped up during dinner. I remembered because her fingers trembled as she reached for her phone too quickly. At the time, I didn't say anything. But now, it all came back with painful clarity. I started by checking her old backups. Her cloud storage wasn't password protected. Within 15 minutes, I found screenshots, photo dumps, and full conversations. Texts where she joked about me, about how he's so sweet he has no idea. She had sent photos from our home, our bed, our couch, after being with him. There were messages from her to him where she laughed about dodging questions I had asked her about staying late, told him it was a project meeting. Lol, poor guy. My hands didn't shake, my breath stayed even. Every vile word I read only pushed me further into a state of detachment. I wasn't hurt anymore, I was focused. I collected everything: screenshots with timestamps, GPS locations from shared photos, even receipts from restaurants she told me she ate lunch with the girls at. I downloaded voice notes she had sent him. Her voice sounded younger in those messages, flirtier, like she was someone else. Maybe she was, but I didn't stop there. I installed data recovery software on her laptop, the one she used for work and Zoom meetings when she locked the bedroom door. It was surprisingly easy to find deleted files. Cache images, saved contact cards, a few unsent emails with subject lines like, "I can't keep doing this." Apparently, guilt had visited her once or twice, but never stayed long enough to change her action. I built a folder on my encrypted hard drive titled Truth. In it, I organized everything by date: messages, photos, audio, files. I made copies, stored them in 3 separate locations: USB, cloud, and a private email account she didn't know existed. I even printed a few images and sealed them in envelopes, one for her parents, one for her best friend, one for her boss. Throughout it all, she noticed nothing. She thought I had taken her confession with grace, that I was processing, grieving. She even tried to cuddle one night, resting her head on my chest. I let her. Not because I felt anything for her, but because I wanted her to believe I hadn't changed, that I was still the fool she once described in her messages, the fool who would probably forgive me if I cried hard enough. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to shout. I was going to show the truth, not to win her back, not to humiliate her, but to set the record straight, to ensure that the people who believed in her, who thought she was someone worth admiring, saw her for who she really was. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was delivering reality. And reality, unlike lies, leaves scars that never fade. I chose a Sunday morning, not because it was symbolic, not even for dramatic effect, but because I knew she would be at brunch with her parents, the same parents who believed their daughter was graceful, loyal, and loving. Samantha had always played the perfect daughter. The thoughtful texts, the smiling photos, the overly affectionate hugs. I used to admire how close they were. Now I saw it for what it was, a performance she gave to the world while living a very different truth behind closed doors. The email to her parents was simple, no subject line, no message, just an attachment labeled "For Your Awareness." Inside, a zip file with images, chat logs, and a timeline that mapped out the entire affair. From the first flirty message to the hotel receipts she thought would stay buried, every piece fit together too well to deny. I imagined the silence that would fall over their table when her father opened the email. The slow turning of her mother's face toward her, the disbelief, the shame. Samantha had always said her parents hated dishonesty. I simply gave them the truth. Her best friend Rachel received her copy next. This one hit differently. Rachel and Samantha had been inseparable since college, more like sisters than friends. They had secrets between them that even I wasn't privy to. But the affair, that wasn't one of them. In fact, Samantha had lied to Rachel just like she had to everyone else. There was a particular exchange I made sure to highlight in the file, one where Samantha made fun of Rachel's recent breakup while gushing to her affair partner about how pathetic Rachel looked, crying at work. That was betrayal layered on betrayal. I wanted Rachel to see it not just as an affair but as the fracture of something deeper, trust between friends. And finally her boss. Samantha worked hard to climb the ladder at her firm. She was seen as a rising star, professional, punctual, poised. But professionalism and deception rarely coexist peacefully. I sent the file to her direct supervisor and to HR. I didn't make any demands, didn't write an accusatory message, just let the evidence speak. Among the messages were screenshots of Samantha skipping meetings to spend time with him, logging fake hours, and even bragging about how she could manipulate the timesheets and no one would know. By noon my phone buzzed, one missed call from Samantha, then another, then a flood of messages. "We need to talk. Ethan, please. You don't understand." But I did. I understood perfectly. And I wasn't going to be the cleanup crew for a life she chose to shatter. I watched her world unravel from the quiet of my apartment. I didn't need to say a word. The truth was louder than any argument ever could be. She wanted forgiveness. What she got was exposure. And the beauty of the truth? It doesn't knock. It breaks the door down. It didn't take long for the silence to shatter. By Monday morning, Samantha's carefully curated world was splintering from all sides. Her parents, once her greatest supporters, were now refusing to answer her calls. Her mother, always composed, reportedly broke down during brunch, stunned into tears as the evidence played across her husband's phone screen. Her father, a man known for his quiet pride and high standards, left without a word. That silence spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. At work, things unraveled just as swiftly. Samantha showed up to the office dressed sharp as always, attempting to preserve some sense of control, but whispers began the moment she walked in. A few of her co-workers had already seen the emails. Someone in HR leaked the internal conversation. She had been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into timesheet fraud and professional misconduct. The smug confidence she once wore like perfume had vanished. Her carefully painted smile was cracking. Rachel, her best friend and unofficial sister, was the next blow. I never heard the exact conversation, but word reached me through mutual acquaintances. Apparently, Rachel had called Samantha that night and screamed at her for over 10 minutes before hanging up. Rachel blocked her everywhere: social media, messages, calls. Gone. The betrayal wasn't just about Samantha cheating. It was about the contempt hidden in those texts, the way she had mocked Rachel's heartbreak while engaging in something far more vile. And then came Samantha's calls to me. They started as messages, then voicemails. Then she tried visiting my apartment. She stood outside my building once, wearing the coat I had bought her last Christmas, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I watched from behind the curtain, stone-faced, as she buzzed my door again and again. I didn't answer. She waited for an hour before finally walking away. She left another voicemail that evening, her voice hollow and shaky. "Ethan, I know what I did was wrong. I thought you'd understand that it was never about him. It was about me being lost. Please, let me fix this." But there was nothing left to fix. The people she counted on now looked at her with suspicion, anger, or disappointment. Every lie she thought she could bury had been exhumed and displayed in full view. There was no one left to comfort her, no one to shield her from the consequences. She thought a mistake could be erased with time or tears, but some betrayals don't fade. They stain everything. I didn't respond, not because I hated her, but because I finally loved myself enough to walk away from someone who never truly valued what we had. Her life was in free fall, and for once, I didn't feel responsible for catching her. By the end of the week, I had already moved on in ways Samantha would never fully understand. I wasn't dating someone new, nor was I throwing myself into distractions. I was simply living, peacefully, purposefully, and completely free of the weight she had become. For the first time in a long while, I could breathe without questioning everything. My world, no longer built on lies or suspicion, had found clarity in silence. She, however, was living inside a storm of her own making. Word had gotten around. Her coworkers stopped replying to her texts. Her job, the one she'd spent years climbing toward, issued a formal notice. Her position was terminated. The HR department cited violations of conduct and falsification of records. She would no longer be collecting the paycheck that once paid for her weekend getaways. With him. The damage was permanent. Her parents cut off contact indefinitely. Her father, a man who once called her his little anchor, now referred to her, I later learned, as someone I don't recognize anymore. Rachel, once the confidant who had stood beside her through every breakup, every crisis, every tear-filled night, was now a stranger. Samantha had tried to call her again and again, each attempt met with silence or a blocked number. She even showed up at Rachel's apartment once. Rachel didn't open the door. The final blow wasn't a dramatic scene. It wasn't a confrontation. It was the moment she realized that the people she thought she could manipulate, charm, or guilt into loving her again were gone. All of them, including me. She sent one last message, a long, desperate letter, typed in the middle of the night, filled with half-excuses and broken confessions. She spoke of childhood wounds, confusion, loneliness. She blamed the culture at her office, the thrill of feeling wanted, even hinted at depression. She said she didn't expect me to forgive her, but wanted me to at least acknowledge her pain. I didn't, because pain doesn't erase betrayal, and apologies don't erase choices. I never responded. Instead, I opened the door to my new life, stepped through, and didn't look back. I deleted her number, archived every file, and stored them away, not to revisit, but to remind myself of how far I had come from being a man who tolerated dishonesty disguised as imperfection. She watched from afar, of course. I know she did. She viewed my posts, checked my professional updates, even liked a quote I shared once about self-respect. But that was all she had now. Distant echoes of a life she broke. Samantha lost more than a relationship. She lost her reputation, her circle, her comfort, and the one person who once would have done anything for her. As for me, I didn't just walk away. I walked forward, and sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't shouting, destroying, or retaliating. It's refusing to carry someone's shame any longer, and letting them drown in it alone.